Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to the Hour of the Time, today being Wednesday, July 27th, 2005. Now, you're listening to the Hour of the Time on WBCQ The Planet, 7.415 megahertz and 9.330 megahertz out of Monticello, Maine. Now, to reach the Hour of the Time, you may do so by writing Hour of the Time, P.O. Box 940, Eager, spelled E-A-G-A-R, Arizona, 85925. Again, that's Hour of the Time, P.O. Box 940, Eager, Arizona, 85925. Now to visit our website, houroftheTime.com, a wonderful website full of research material, news links, special projects. I highly suggest you go there, and go there often. We're constantly changing, adding, updating. It's not necessarily on the front page either, ladies and gentlemen, so you need to keep abreast. If you'd like to email me directly, it's houroftheTime@hotmail.com, houroftheTime@hotmail.com, and the studio number, call-in line, etc. is 928-333-2942. And since we're on that subject, tomorrow, Thursday the 28th of July, we're going to do a call-in show here with Rob T. and myself concerning the mystery schools, esoteric, dispensationalism, New Age religions. Please call in and participate. You'll simply use the studio number, 928-333-2942. Share your research. Discuss these topics with us, ladies and gentlemen. And then on Friday, we have another very special guest calling in. He's going to report live from the Convention of Conventions when it comes to the cyber security, physical security, internet and computer security, and really a collection of the who's of the spooks out there. It's DEF CON 13, the Black Hat, and you're going to be amazed at what you hear, and this again is another exclusive Hour of the Time opportunity. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please remember the Hour of the Time is listener supported, and without your support we cannot continue this cutting-edge research. The website, free to the audience, 365 days a year. We can't continue our website live Monday through Friday on WBCQ The Planet, and all the special research and other costs to run this operation. You can donate directly via PayPal, right on the front page of our website, houroftheTime.com, or in the mail to the P.O. Box 940, Eager, Arizona, 85925, and better yet, check out the Hot Shop on the website, and there you'll see the literally thousands of subjects and broadcasts that are covered in our research catalog, as well as our video presentations and our publications, and get you some information in an area that you want to research or in an area you already research and enjoy, and share those with your family and friends, and help us with our goal to restore this constitutional republic and our freedoms, and to fight back and stop the world socialist and their goals. Now we're going to go to a quick musical break and then have Rob on here to continue with us today. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, again, you're listening to the Hour of the Time on WBCQ The Planet, Wednesday, the 27th July, 2005. Today, part 11 in this special series, which will culminate in a combination of symbology research from Rob Houghton, myself, Rob, here our special guest, the other Rob, his research, and Bill's, many of the broadcasts he did in advanced research of the mysteries and esoteric right prior to his murder, and that he did get down on tape and recorded into Mystery Babylon 2, which we had been working on prior to his death. Now today we have our special guest on, Rob, and that's not the co-host and webmaster. Do not get confused, and he is given the Hour of the Time a unique opportunity again. We arranged with him where you can do direct correspondence instead of through me and forwarding emails with him on these subjects, and don't abuse it, please. His email is rltwoco@aol.com. That's rltwoco@aol.com. And again, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to continue on today's part 3 in this segment of our series. Kind of a sub-segment, if you will. And it's, again, the Four Horsemen explained, and a lot of the symbology and ties behind it, and how the Vatican esoteric and mystery schools tie into each other. And Rob, we got you on there.
Okay, Doyel.
Alright, how's it going today?
I'm alright.
Alrighty, and Rob, we're, I believe you're going to continue on with the black horse, and then wrap it up with the pale horse?
Right. We left off with the black horse, which is the third seal. You know, we were talking about the Ustachi squad and how the Vatican wanted to create an independent Catholic Croatia during World War II, and how the Jesuits were involved with killing the Serbs, and of course a lot of the Serbs were Orthodox Church, and the Vatican wanted to destroy the Orthodox Church and bring them back under Rome, under the Vatican. And continuing, today Bosnia and Herzegovina is near Croatia. The Catholic Church was also involved in the crises there in the 1990s. And a good book to read is Bosnia and Herzegovina, Tradition Betrayed, by Robert J. Dania and John V.A. Fine Jr. And there's a lot of pages here, pages 8, 10 through 12, 17 through 25, 32, 35 through 7, 39 to 41, 43, 64, 65, 66, 67, 72, 73, 78, 84, 87, 93, 97, 100, pages 103 to 104, 106, 112, 131, 136 to 7, 139 to 42, 147, 152, 155, 162 to 6, 171, 175, 179 to 180, 201, 223, 250, 254 to 256. And, you know, needless to say, this book and all these pages is well documented. They talk about the Ustachi and the Vatican and Jesuit connections. Again, it's Bosnia and Herzegovina, Tradition Betrayed by Robert J. Dania and John V. Fine Jr. And I find it amazing that Archbishop Stepanak, who we talked about last time, who was involved in the Ustachi squad, he was later made a cardinal by the Vatican, and Pope John Paul II wanted to make this guy a saint, Stepanak. Germany and the other countries lost World War II. The Nazi Party lost and communism was the winner. Millions of Jewish people and other people were murdered in the Holocaust, which should be called an inquisition, a religious inquisition. The Vatican was unsuccessful and has never recognized Israel as a nation. The Vatican is desperately trying to sign a concordat with Israel. The Vatican wants Israel and always wanted to move to Jerusalem, as we have said before. The Horror of Revelation, or Babylon, the Great Mystery Babylon, is the world center of trade, and has always used people and governments to secretly buy and sell as her representatives. Quote, supporting the whore from the beginning were pro-Catholic Jews working as her merchants. Then came the Mafia, the Illuminati, and its Freemasons, along with the wealthy individuals such as the House of Rothschild, etc., working as their brokers. The Jewish House of the Rothschilds, who incidentally had been lending money to the Vatican since 1831, came forward with a buying, selling, and amalgamating of millions of shares and other investments on behalf of the Vatican. Remember that Mayor Amschel Rothschild was in the inner council of Weishaupt's Illuminati. Rothschild believed in Weishaupt's law of fives. The Vatican's traditional financial transactions have been handled for years by the great banking concerns of J.P. Morgan in New York, mostly for American investments, Hambros of London for British investments, and the Swiss Credit Bank of Zurich for European investments, without mentioning the Vatican's own concerns such as Banco di Roma, Banco Comerciale, Banco Santo Spirito, and other less known but equally skillful entities handling and multiplying the Catholic billions throughout the globe. There are also the solid properties, real estate, lands, industrial and commercial concerns owned and controlled by the Vatican in Italy, Spain, Germany, Great Britain, and North, Central, and South America. The Vatican's traditional financial dealers are mostly non-Catholic fraternity of Protestants, agnostics, non-Christians, Jews, and even atheists. The Vatican has always invested its money in real estate, stocks, and shares, and you can read all about this in a book called The Vatican Billions by Avro Manhattan. Political parties are controlled by Loyalists and Weishaupt's Illuminati. Hardly anyone goes into high office without their approval. They control and direct the fighting of the right and left wings in politics. They control the Republican and Democratic parties in the U.S. The higher ones of both parties are members of certain organizations. Some of these are the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, the Bilderbergers, Freemasonry, the Rose Cross or Rosicrucians, the Knights of Templar, and Knights of Malta. The U.S. public doesn't get to select the candidates. We think we are voting for the best man, but whoever we elect is their man. They select the candidates, and the candidates are presented to us as a choice, either Republican, Democrat, or whatever. It doesn't make a difference which choice we make anymore. Let's look at some of these men. Ronald Reagan was made an honorary 33rd degree Freemason in his second term, and he believed in a New World Order. And he used to be called Red Ronnie in Hollywood. Franklin D. Roosevelt was a socialist and a 33rd degree Freemason and created a welfare state in the U.S. with the Second New Deal in the 1930s. Bill Clinton was Jesuit trained from Georgetown University, and he holds the rank of a senior Demolay in the state of Arkansas. And the Demolay Society is the group for Masons, their sons or their nephews who will become Masons, and these are people who are under 18. They become members of the Demolay Society, which is the Freemasons really group for young teenage boys. And again, the Demolay is a clue because Demolay is the name of the last Grand Master of the Knights Templars, so obviously there's a link between Templars and the Freemasons. Now you can look at some Clinton and Demolay websites are www.demolay.org. You can look on their website, and there's a bunch of other sites. The Grand Lodge of www.grandlodge-nc.org. There'll be archives there on Demolay and Demolay websites. A link to Clinton being a Demolay. George Herbert Walker Bush is a Knights of Malta. The book we offered here from an hour time before, the Oklahoma City Day 1. In Appendix A explains about the Knights of Malta. And let me quote from that book that we've quoted from before. It says, quote, "The Knights of Malta is one of the high degrees of Freemasonry. Freemasons descended from the Knights Templar. The degree of Knight of Malta is conferred in the United States as an appendant order in the Commandery of Knights Templar. There is a ritual attached to the degree, but very few are in possession of it, and it is generally communicated after a candidate has been created a Knights Templar. The Knights of Malta were successfully taken over by the Knights Templar during the Peasants' Revolt as an act of revenge. For the Templars, vengeance was required when the Knights of Malta accepted the property of the Templars after the Pope, on orders from King Philip of France, destroyed the Templars. Consequently, the Templars have sworn revenge against all Christians and nations. Their goal is to establish a one-world government and one-world religion over the ashes of all existing religions and nations." Unquote. It would be correct to say that the Knights Templar swore revenge on Roman Catholicism and the Vatican and not on Christians, unless you consider Roman Catholicism as being Christianity. Again, quoting from the book, quote, "To this day, the Knights of Malta are the militia of the Pope and are sworn to total obedience by a blood oath, which is taken extremely seriously and to the death. In times when the Pope is threatened, the Swiss mercenaries that guard the Vatican are dismissed and the Knights of Malta take station as the elite militia and guardians of the Pope. The Knights are also sworn to instantly forsake everything and everyone and hasten to the aid of the Pope should they be called. They are sworn to absolute obedience to the Pope, forsaking all other allegiances, duties, or obligations whatsoever. The Pope, as the head of the Vatican, is the head of a foreign national power. Membership in the Sovereign and Military Order of Malta denotes an allegiance to that foreign power in the form of the nation of Malta and the Pope. The Sovereign and Military Order of Malta headquarters in Rome covers a sizable piece of real estate. It is recognized as a sovereign nation by all nations and by the United Nations. All members of the Sovereign and Military Order of Malta are issued and carry a diplomatic passport which exempts them from prosecution under the laws of all nations save Malta. The passport also denotes an official of a foreign government who is reforming in the interest of Malta first and foremost. By virtue of the blood oath of obedience to the Pope, the members are required to support to the death the desires of the head of the Order of the Knights of Malta. In this case, it was Pope John Paul II. Now it's a new Pope, Pope Benedict XVI, over and above all other allegiance to any other loyalty, such as a loyalty to the Constitution for the United States of America. The Pope is openly calling, Pope John Paul II was openly calling for world government by the year 2007. Those who are presently members of the Knights of Malta must, on penalty of death, support those policies advocated by the Vatican. It is not hard for them to do this. They believe in these policies and principles. The policies espoused and proclaimed by Pope John Paul II were as follows: the end of sovereignty for all nations, including the United States, end of absolute property rights, end of all gun ownership rights, the new international economic order, world government, the redistribution of wealth and jobs, calls for nations to trust the United Nations, total disarmament, promote the United Nations as the hope for peace, promote UNESCO, the daily educational and cultural arm of the United Nations, promote interdependence, support sanctions honoring Father Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, the New Age humanist priest, support the belief that the economic principle of traditional Christian or Catholic social doctrine is the economic principle of communism, and promote the Pope as the acting go-between for the United States and the Soviet Union. And also could be seen in Oklahoma City, Day 1, by Michelle Marie Moore, pages 307 to 309. You see, the members of the Knights of Malta are not the actual decision makers. They are owned by the Vatican. They are members of the Knights of Malta and under complete and total obedience to the Vatican's political ambitions. Famous Knights of Malta include Marty Anderson, author of Revolution, a member of the board of the President's Foreign Intelligence Advisory Board, Andrew Bertry, who was the 78th Prince and Grand Master of the Sovereign Order of Malta, Pat Buchanan, who was a journalist and presidential candidate, George Herbert Walker Bush, the former President of the United States, William Casey, former Director of the CIA, former member of the Council on Foreign Relations, and who was also the former head of the Securities and Exchange Commission, he was also the former head of Ronald Reagan's political campaign and head of the Export-Import Bank during the Nixon administration, J. Peter Grace, who was the U.S. President of Knights of Malta and chairman of the W.R. Grace Company, Alexander Haig, who was former Secretary of State, Claire Booth Luce, who's a member of the Knights of Malta also, John McCone, he was envoy to the Vatican for President John F. Kennedy and director of the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA. Thomas Melody, ambassador to the Vatican under President George Herbert Walker Bush. A former ambassador, who's former ambassador to Uganda and Burundi, and former president of Sacred Heart University in Bridgeport, Connecticut. John D.J. Moore, member of the W.R. Grace Board, ambassador to Ireland under Presidents Nixon and Ford. Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North, who was defendant in the Iran-Contra affair. John J. Roscoe, founding member of the U.S. branch of the Knights of Malta and former chairman of the board of General Motors and former treasurer of the Knights of Malta. Frank Shakespeare, U.S. ambassador to the Vatican, former ambassador to the Republic of Portugal, who was also president of CBS Television, CBS Incorporated in New York from 1950 to 1969. He was also director of the United States Information Agency from 1969 to 73. Executive Vice President of Westinghouse, New York from 73 to 75. He was a Vice Chairman of RKO General Incorporated in New York from 1975. He was Chairman of the Board for International Broadcasting from 1981 to 85. And Chairman of the Board of Trustees of the Heritage Foundation. The Heritage Foundation is really backed by the Knights of Malta, controlled by Knights of Malta, the Heritage Foundation. Other members of the Knights of Malta are Martin F. Shee, Executive Vice President of Morgan Bank. Myron Taylor, who was envoy to the Vatican for Roosevelt. Robert Wagner, former mayor of New York City and envoy to the Vatican for President Jimmy Carter. Vernon Walters, former director of the CIA, chief diplomatic troubleshooter. He succeeded Jeane Kirkpatrick as U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. Paul Raywick, who was founder of the Heritage Foundation and a member for the survival of a free Congress, and William Wilson, who was the first U.S. ambassador to the Vatican. And all these people just listed were members of the Knights of Malta. And all this can be again seen in the book Oklahoma City Day 1 by Michelle Marie Moore, pages 310 to 311. If to read this book, since it reveals that Governor Frank Keating of Oklahoma is a Knights of Malta who knew in advance that the Alfred Murrah Federal Building was going to be bombed. Did the Knights of Malta have an involvement in the explosion of the Alfred Murrah Building on April 19, 1995? You should read the book to find out, Oklahoma City Day 1. You might have noticed that some of these men are not and were never even Roman Catholics. You don't have to be a Roman Catholic to be a Knights of Malta. The Knights of Columbus, which has its headquarters in New Haven, Connecticut, requires members to be a Roman Catholic. That's another group, the Knights of Columbus. Now, the Knights of Malta are in no way a Christian order, but I find it amazing that Rick Joyner, from the high ecumenical leader, who his group is the Morning Star Publications, and Paul Kane, another self-proclaimed prophet from the Kansas City 5, Paul Kane of the Latter Rain movement, Dominion Theology, Joel's Army group. These men were both knighted into Knights of Malta. And later on, we're going to be talking about Rick Joyner, Paul Kane. We're going to be talking about the Latter Rain movement, Dominion Theology, and Joel's Army. The idea, it's obvious that, Dominion Theology, again, they connect to the Word of Faith movement, that they're going to have dominion, and we have to take dominion back from Satan, because Adam committed high treason again. All these movements, the Latter Rain movement, Dominion Theology, Joel's Army, we actually shouldn't find it amazing that these guys are members of Knights of Malta, because they believe, these Word of Faith leaders and Dominion Theology leaders like Paul Kane, Rick Joyner, they believe in the Joel's Army Dominion Theology, which is connected to the Knights of Malta. They believe that they're going to be the special army that's going to take over and bring in the kingdom for Jesus Christ. Rick Joyner admitted that he was knighted by the Knights of Malta. Country singer Ricky Skaggs, Mahas Chavda, another Word of Faith leader, and who was involved with the Toronto Blessing and Pensacola movements, the Holy Laughter movements from the mid and late 90s. Bobby Connors, and others were knighted along with Rick Joyner. Paul Kane was knighted already sometime before Joyner. Kane had a meeting with Saddam Hussein, president who was the president of Iraq at the time, which was organized by the Knights of Malta. This is actually really more amazing that Paul Kane, this Word of Faith leader, self-proclaimed prophet, had a meeting with Saddam Hussein sometime in the 90s, who was still president of Iraq, and this was organized. This meeting between Kane and Saddam Hussein was organized by the Knights of Malta. That's pretty amazing. And we find out that later on it's been revealed that Paul Kane, a self-proclaimed prophet, Rick Joyner even admitted in his newsletter that Paul Kane was caught in homosexual acts with other men. He's known to be an alcoholic, and Rick Joyner admitted that Paul Kane did have homosexual relationships, just like Robert Liardon, another Word of Faith teacher. And we're going to be playing quotes from Robert Liardon later on when we talk about the quotes from Word of Faith leaders in their own meetings. But these guys are excuse, Rick Joyner's excuse, well, Paul Kane was in error, but he's still a prophet, because they believe that a prophet doesn't have to be 100% correct. They believe that, well, he's allowed to make mistakes. He's growing into the gift of the Spirit. He's growing into prophethood and apostlehood. We'll be talking later more about latter rain movement, dominion theology, and Joel's army, which is really important. The idea of marchers for Jesus and all these movements, spiritual mapping, C. Peter Wagner, spiritual warfare, all these things are connected. You can find a lot of this information between the Knights of Malta and the links with Saddam Hussein and Paul Kane and Rick Joyner being knighted by the Knights of Malta in a newsletter called End Times of Victorious Living, September to October 1998, and November to December 1998 newsletters, and this is from Dr. Joseph Chambers, Paul Creek Ministries in North Carolina, who had some really good information and has a 10 or 11 audio videotape set about these holy laughter and these revival movements. Is really everyone should get a hand take a look at and get. And that's from, you can look at his website, and these articles are on his website also. It's www.paulcreek.org. paulcreek.org. You can contact Joseph Chambers from these ministries. You can also contact Rick Joyner about the Knights of Malta, and he'll gladly give you information about his involvement with them and also about them. And he doesn't hide his information at all. And he has various books about the Knights of Malta, how they were this Christian organization. Again, he doesn't talk any links to it with Freemasonry and esoteric religions. He, thinks he's a crusader. That's what they believe. They believe they're all crusader knights, and they're going to take over the Vatican. They're going to take over. And really, they're really working for the Pope. They're going, if they're becoming Knights of Malta, they want to have a one-world government really under the Pope, and they believe that they're going to bring in the millennial kingdom of Jesus, and they're going to Christianize the world. And really, what they're going to be forcing people to supposedly accept their version of Christianity. That's what it's going to happen in the future. I also find it amazing that the one who spent most of his life writing and exposing the Vatican was also Knights of Malta. And who is this man? It is the author Avro Manhattan. And he's written really great books exposing the Vatican and the Jesuits. He was made a Knights of Malta for operating a radio station called Radio Freedom, which broadcasted to the partisans in occupied Europe during World War II. His aristocratic roots meant that he was a knight of the House of Savoy, as well as a Knights Templar and a Knight of the Order of Mercedes. So according to this, he was a Knights of Malta and a Knights Templar. You can check this out on the website www.reformation.org/avro.html. And the website www.reformation.org is a must website about the Vatican. It has a lot of books by Avro Manhattan about the Vatican in connection to Vietnam, the Vatican's Holocaust. There's a bunch of 2 or 3 books by Avro Manhattan right there on this website, reformation.org, that everyone should take a look at. George Herbert Walker Bush who was also in Knights of Malta, we talked about before. He's also a member of the Skull and Bones Society of Yale University in New Haven, Connecticut. His father, Prescott Bush, was also a member of the Skull and Bones Society from Yale. The Skull and Bones Society is really a black lodge of Freemasonry. The skull and bones or skull and crossbones I mentioned earlier is the black flag of the Jesuit priests under the extreme oath in induction. This is the same flag that appeared on the pirate ships of the old days, right after the Templars were banished. These flags started appearing, the skull and bones flags. It was called the Jolly Roger. It was said that the pirates never attacked the ships carrying the Pope's share of gold, precious stones, spices, etc. Only the ones going to the kings of Spain, England, or Portugal were attacked. The Jesuits and the Templars combined were the ones behind the pirates. And they had, obviously they had wars. The Vatican and the Templars always had wars and were always, fighting the Jesuits, and the Vatican persecuted the Templars, and the Templars swore that the Vatican was their enemy, in which they became Scottish Rite Freemasonry, the Templars. Also, the Knights Templars used the symbol of the skull and bones. They also had their own fleet of ships, and this has been documented. The symbol of the skull and bones has an important meaning. J.E. Surlott, in his book A Dictionary of Symbols, defines skull as, quote, an emblem of the mortality of man. However, like the snail's shell, it is in truth what survives of the living being once its body has been destroyed. It therefore comes to acquire significance as a receptacle for life and for thought. It is with this symbol, meaning that it figures in books on alchemy, where it is represented as a receptacle used in the processes of transmutation, unquote. And this is from a Dictionary of Symbols by J.E. Surlott, page 299. Quote, several saints' legends also made use of regenerative bones. Saint Germain resurrected a calf on whose flesh he had just feasted by laying the bones on the hide and praying over them. A derivative medieval belief was that every body contains an incorruptible seed bone, out of which, as they say, as a plant out of the seed our animal bodies shall in the resurrection of the dead spring up, unquote. And this is a quote from the Woman's Encyclopedia of Myths and Secrets by Barbara G. Walker, pages 115. And this is a really good reference book that everyone should take a look at. Talk about myths and secrets. Again, by Barbara G. Walker, page 115. The Woman's Encyclopedia of Myths and Secrets. Quote, the skull and crossbones symbolize the death of the individual self or ego, the death that is required before resurrection into a higher level of being or consciousness. This symbol is also associated with physical death and appears on regalia used for funeral services. One legend says that when Hiram Abiff's body was discovered, again, Hiram Abiff is from the Masonic legend, he received 3 wounds. He was holding the master's secret word. He was destroyed by the Jubellum, and Jubello. He received 3 wounds. When his body was discovered, the skull is said to have rested on crossbones. Another version attributes this symbol to a story about Robert Bruce, who was a king of Scotland. There's also a Templar legend connected to the symbol. In that story, a Templar knight loved a woman who died. He was so possessed by his passion that he broke his vows, came to a grave, and violated the body. After he had finished, a voice spoke to him from the grave, telling him to come back in 9 months. And there's another. They like to use the number 9 in their myths and legends. The mystery religions like the number 9. When he returned, again, 9 is also that when the woman gets pregnant, she's in labor for, she's pregnant for 9 months. They use that also. When he returned and dug up the grave, he found a skull resting on the woman's thigh bones. The voice told him to take the skull, and he died. The skull was magical and gave him magical advice. This story may be related to the charges that the Templars had a magical head called Baphomet that they worshipped, unquote. And this is from the Little Book of Freemasonry by Sanjeet Duchain, pages 101 to 102. Quote, the human skull is a preeminent symbol of mortality and the vanity of this earthly life, representing at the same time a warning sign, and a threat. Two beliefs which are found the world over and which are shared by humanity, past and present, are that all bones are centers of psychic energy and that the head is a dwelling place of the soul. Until well into the 17th century, it seems to have been generally accepted as a scientific fact that the soul flowed in the fluids of the ventricles of the brain, while even in our own times there exists a strong tendency to regard mind as an aspect of spirit, unquote. And this is from a good encyclopedia set that everyone should get a hold of and read. This is from Man, Myth, and Magic, Volume 19, and the editor is Richard Cavendish, and this is on page 2594. Also in occult philosophy and yoga, the Kundalini is a serpent force that lays at the base of the spine where the loins or genitals are in the front and rises through certain channels or chakras until it reaches the skull or top of the head. The mysteries teach that there are 32 columns in the spinal cord if you count a certain way, and that the 33rd is the skull. With all these texts known about the skull and bones, it is understood why the Skull and Bones Society uses this symbol. Back in those days, the criminal arm of the Vatican began under the guiding hand of the Jesuits. Today, the mafia is one of the criminal arms of the Vatican, and it's been documented that the mafia is connected to Giuseppe Mazzini in Italy, who was a Mason, and his friend was Albert Pike, who was the head of the Scottish Rite Freemasonry in the Carolinas, and there's connections. The Masons are really behind the creation of the mafia, and the Vatican has always used the mafia. And we talked about the Kundalini, the serpent force lays at the base of the spine, and a lot of people try to combine that and connect that to the Holy Laughter movement, that they're really doing the same things. What they do in yoga, they just sit there and, supposedly when they, when the serpent force rises, goes up to the skull or the top of their head, they reach enlightenment and illumination. Some people say they do ecstasies, and it's really hard to say what they do. I really never saw anyone reach this stage. The enlightenment. It's supposed they had the ecstasies and they laugh, but a lot of people try to connect this to this Holy Laughter movement from these movements in the 90s, the Toronto and Pensacola revivals. I don't know if this is really accurate, but the Holy Laughter movement really is the mystery religions. They're doing altered states of consciousness. They're barking like dogs, and we can talk about this more later. The Holy Laughter movement. They're laughing. They're barking like dogs. So many people cluck like chickens and bark like dogs and howl like wolves, and it's all based on emotions, experiences, that they're really getting more knowledge of the revelation of the Holy Spirit in their lives. Satan, super politician, the Antichrist may come into power through the Vatican. All this is interwoven with the Masonic lodges and the Illuminati and can be traced back to Nimrod's idea of a one world government in Genesis chapter 10. Roman Catholicism is a mixture of witchcraft, Judaism, paganism, and just enough perverted Christianity to make it appear respectable. Roman Catholicism is the same basic religion that was at the time of the Tower of Babel or Babylon, and of Nimrod and Semiramis in Genesis chapter 10. And a really good book to read is The Two Babylons by Alexander Hislop, how he connects the two Babylons, the Vatican, to the old Babylon, and talks about Nimrod and Semiramis in greater detail.
Hey, Rob, let's go to a break here. Give yourself and the audience a little gap here for just a couple minutes. Get some water. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, the Hour of the Time is listener supported, and through your donations we're able to keep the Hour of the Time going on the air and bringing you research on the website, etc., to help you in your knowledge base, to help restore the Constitution into its full power and bring back our republic and our freedoms. Now, after this musical break, we'll continue on, ladies and gentlemen, with today, the 27th July 2005, part 11 in our long-running series here, and really a subpart, part 3, that we started this week of the Four Horsemen Explained. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the Hour of the Time today, Wednesday the 27th July 2005, part 11 in our long special series that we're going to continue on, and as a subpart per se, part 3 of this segment this week, the Four Horsemen Explained. We'll be wrapping that up, today, and then tomorrow, the 28th, Thursday, we're going to have open phone lines, call and discuss this topic, etc. It's going to be really good, ladies and gentlemen. The call-in number and the regular studio line for messages, anything, is 928-333-2942. That's 928-333-2942. And our website, houroftheTime.com. And my email, houroftheTime@hotmail.com. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, we are listener supported. Now, we're going to continue on here. We're just going to get on to the next segment in today's broadcast, and Rob, we're going to kick off the last seal, I guess, here.
Yep, the last seal is the pale horse. And I quote, "And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him. And power was given unto them over the fourth part of the earth, to kill with sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beasts of the earth." Unquote, and that's from Revelation 6, verse 8. This horseman is a mixture of the red and black horses. When the colors red and black are mixed together, you get a pale color. This is the final solution. The people will follow the Antichrist, which may be the last pope. The ecumenical and charismatic movements were created to bring Roman Catholics and true biblical Christians together as one. The movements say that you are a Christian no matter what religion. The term separated brethren was used a lot. The Jesuits are secretly using the charismatic movement to push the techniques of the Montanists, the mystics, and Loyola's spiritual exercises as well as behavioral sciences through groups known as Cursillo, Marriage Encounter, Decloris, etc. You can read this in The Force by Chick, page 24. One result of these movements is the development of new Bible translations, all based on the United Bible Society's Nestle-Aland Greek text and the Alexandrian text. There is said to be a white and pale flag in the United Nations replacing the communist and fascist flag. Red and black are between the white and pale colors of this flag. A symbol used by the Jesuits is the dove. The mother goddess of the pagan religion was Cybele. She was known as a dove that binds or cords. Jesuits used the symbol of the dove because it was related to the mother goddess Cybele. Cybele, or Semiramis, was later changed to the Virgin Mary. There is a magazine that some Christians read called Charisma Magazine. On the front cover of it is always a symbol of a dove. Christians say that it is on the magazine because the dove represents the Holy Spirit. If you read this magazine, there are many articles promoting the ecumenical and charismatic movements and pictures of priests and true biblical Christians coming together as one. What is happening to today's Christian leaders? Billy Graham, Pat Iverson, Bill Bright, Chuck Colson, Paul and Jan Crouch, and so many others are actively involved in the charismatic and ecumenical movements. The Promise Keepers is nothing but an ecumenical movement. Bill McCartney, the leader, is still a closet Roman Catholic. One leader in the Promise Keepers once said that the music of the Beatles, the rock group of the 1960s, was inspired by the Holy Spirit to lead souls to Christ and start a revival. And you can read a good book is Promise Keepers, Another Trojan Horse by Phil Arms. One of the greatest leaders of all time has been compromising for years now. This is Billy Graham. He received an honorary degree from Belmont Abbey College, a Roman Catholic college. The book called The Deadly Deception by Jim Shaw and Tom McKinney reveals how Jim Shaw was initiated as a 33rd degree Freemason in Washington, D.C. The day was June 6, 1966. On page 104 of the book, it says, quote, "There are some extremely prominent men there that day, including a Scandinavian king, 2 former presidents of the United States, an internationally prominent evangelist, 2 other internationally prominent clergymen, and a very high official of the federal government, the one who actually presented me with the certificate of the 33rd degree," unquote. Shaw later revealed in an audio tape that the internationally prominent evangelist was Billy Graham. Billy Graham didn't receive the 33rd degree on that day, which means that he had received it before this date. You must understand that to attend an initiation of the 33rd degree, you have to be either getting it on the initiation day or already are a 33rd degree Freemason. Billy Graham didn't receive it then, which means he had to have received the 33rd degree sometime before June 6, 1966. And you can read this in an old newsletter from Tex Mars, Flashpoint, August 1995, and the May 1998 newsletters by Tex Mars. And you can listen to Tex Mars audio tape, Bible Prophecy Update Volume 6 from October 1994, and The Awful Truth About Billy Graham tapes 1 and 2 from January 1997, all from Tex Mars Power of Prophecy. We should pray for these men who have compromised with the horror of Babylon. Have they ever read Ephesians 5:11 or 2 Corinthians 6:14 through 18? Another belief and movement Christians get confused about and support is dispensationalism. It was started in the 1830s and was popularized by John Nelson Darby, who created the Plymouth Brethren. Dispensationalists believe that Jews are still God's chosen people. They hold to the belief that God still has a special plan for the geographical entity of Israel, and those they believe are the physical descendants of Abraham. They say that God has two separate plans, one for Israel after the flesh and one for the New Testament church after the Spirit, Holy Spirit. Some leaders of dispensationalism were John Henry Newman, who created the Oxford movement, Edward Irving, who created the Irvingites and was one of the first preachers who taught about a two-phase return of Christ known as the rapture, which came from a prophetic revelations or dreams from a woman named Margaret MacDonald, and also Cyrus Ingerson Schofield, who brought forth the Schofield Reference Bible. Dispensationalism is nothing really but Christian Zionism. Christian Zionism is the belief that Israel is still the focus of God's ultimate plan for the future, despite the fact that the New Testament covenant, brought with it the international body of Christ and the emphasis on salvation through faith and not ethnicity. Christian Zionism also is the belief that the modern ethnic people called Jewish people in their modern geopolitical land called Israel is still the focal point of God's redemptive plan because, after all, God made a promise to Abraham about multiplying his descendants and giving them the promised land, and God isn't about to change his mind. Christian Zionism is really a theocracy, which is a form of government by a divine being and or by priests. Physical Israel is then earthbound, and it would become God by the deification of man. Zionism is a way to manipulate people into accepting a world government ruled by God's chosen people, and they perpetrate this dream through the delusion or the manipulation that is for the preservation of the state of Israel. Zionism is race claiming its adherents to be a superior race chosen by God to rule over all other races in a world totalitarian socialist government. When I say Zionism, I don't just mean Jewish people. Zionism is not Judaism. Don't confuse the two. A lot of Jewish people do not believe in Zionism. There are many American and British Zionists. Zionism ties in with the beliefs of British Israelism, Anglo-Israelism, and the Christian identity movement. And all this is connected to British Freemasonry. William Branham, the leader of the Latter Rain movement, who we'll be talking about later, and we briefly talked before in the series on the Word of Faith movement, believed in British Israelism. British Israelism begins with the idea that the Jews are God's chosen people according to the flesh, and that they are yet to receive the physical blessing that God promised Abraham, and that they shall receive these physical blessings in the millennial age. In this belief, dispensationalism also follows. Dispensationalism is Christian Zionism. But the British Israel belief is an enlargement of the Jew race myth, making the 12 tribes of ancient Israel, including all the Adamic race, which has as its modern manifestation in Anglo-Saxondom, centered in the British Empire, with the throne of Britain being the throne of Christ, which he shall sit upon after it is removed to Jerusalem, and he returns to earth to rule the nations in the earthly paradise. This is all supposedly God's divine will. The tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh are Britain and the United States respectively. This is what they believe in. These people believe that the destiny of Israel lies with America and Britain. They believe that America and Britain are the true and only seed of Abraham. Some teach various versions of the doctrine of the serpent seed, which says that Eve had sex with the serpent in the Garden of Eden, and the result was Cain, which is how blacks or other races came from. This is all total garbage. Some of these beliefs tie in with the beliefs of Mormonism, the idea that Lucifer and Jesus had war in heaven, and the ones that went with Lucifer, their babies born with black skin. Jerry Fell publicly says that he is a Zionist. The Vatican's real power is the political and economic control they have over the world. And you can read, again, The Two Babylons by Hislop and A Woman Rides the Beast by Dave Hunt. Vatican City is believed by many to be the mystery Babylon of Revelation 17 and 18. The mystery Babylon is not Iraq because the woman, which is the church, rode onto 7 mountains or hills, and the Vatican is on 7 mountains or hills. Christians in the world are drunk with the wine of the fornication of the whore of Babylon. They don't understand about any of this. In the future, during the tribulation period, the Vatican may rule the world. The last pope may be the Antichrist. He will force everyone to receive his mark. The Roman Catholic institution, Vatican City, may be a fulfillment of Revelation chapter 6, verses 1 through 8, and also chapters 13, 17, and 18. Basically, this is the end of the pamphlet that we were, talk about the four horsemen of the book of Revelation. We want to understand that the Vatican, what they have done in the past, what they're doing in the present, what they plan to do in the future, all this information needs to be, understood by everyone. A lot of people don't have to agree with what we say about the colors and the, four seals, but we just use that to try to explain what the Vatican is doing, the colors that the Vatican uses.
Mm-hmm. And that, again, ladies and gentlemen, just like all the other parts of this series, we've given you an immense amount of bibliographical background, so you can go out, read this stuff in their own writing, Word of Faith movements, ecumenicals, etc., dispensationalism, everything footnoted, given out right on the air. Do your own research. If you totally agree with us, then you're just a robot. There's no way you could. Do your research yourself, though, and check it out, and verify your sources, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we really ask. Rob, how would you like to wrap up this? It's third part today, the 27th July 2005 of the Four Horsemen Explained, a sub-segment of our special long series here. How would you like to wrap up the show? We just don't have much time left.
It's just what I want to understand, to find out what a lot of people expose the conspiracy and Illuminati conspiracy by. A lot of people talk about the Masons and stuff, but a lot of people really don't talk about the Vatican, what they're doing. They're one of the powers. Bill said in the past that the four main powers he found out were British Freemasonry, French Freemasonry, Zionism, and the Vatican. Mm-hmm. And the Vatican has always been united with France. Of course, they fought with France, but the Vatican, you find out they really are linked with France and French Freemasonry. We talked before about the Communist Manifesto being written by the League of the Just in France, and the League of the Just in connections to the Jesuits writing the Communist Manifesto.
Exactly. The Communist Manifesto was out, and for all purposes, in this mid to late 1700s, ladies and gentlemen. The major exact word-for-word experts were handed out in leaflet form during the French Revolution amongst the streets by, you got it, the people wearing the red Fijian caps of liberty running around stirring up socialist angst and using typical socialist tactics in the French Revolution. Karl Marx is simply a pen name to bring it into the modern times, if you will. Karl Marx was not much of an intellect. He was quite the pig, in fact, and for him to anybody who knew him or reads the stories of those that worked around him and with him can surely see that he was not capable of putting that work together, let alone the proven facts that it was written a couple hundred years prior. And it does show more of those ties and the socialist tactics of the esoteric and the mystery schools, and really their goal is to use these powerful influences in writing, etc., to unite the world's religions into a world religion and under a world socialist government. And if they have their goal and they succeed, we are going to see suffering and pain and terror like no one's ever seen on the face of this earth. It's going to be a real mess. And ladies and gentlemen, with the hour of the time, you can help fight this socialism, help reestablish our constitutional republic and our freedoms as they were meant to be by our Constitution, our founding fathers. We are the thorn and the last stumbling block in the New World Order's path. And although our government is incredibly saturated with New World Order crowds and the practitioners of the esoteric and the mystery schools, they have not completely succeeded yet here, but once they do, it is basically lost in this world for individual freedom. Hey, Rob, why don't we Yeah, well, let's wrap her up for today. It's been a good long show anyway. I want to thank you for doing this with us.
Okay, Doyel, thanks.
And ladies and gentlemen, again, remember tomorrow is call-in day to discuss these topics that we've been covering the past 2-3 weeks. And we still got a bunch more to cover that you'll be hearing in successive shows. And Friday, another special guest on covering technology and security from the Convention of Conventions, as far as that field's concerned, the Black Hats and DEF CON 13. Thank you for tuning in, and be sure to tune in every day to the hour of the time.
Their true teachings, the esoteric, with a system of exoteric.